Hello, I'm Gary Ansdell. I've been a music therapist now for over 30 years. I was trained in the Nordoff Robbins approach when I was quite young. I was only 24. And since then I've worked in many client areas over the years. But I don't feel I'm really a specialist, rather a kind of jack of all trades in music therapy. But I do still think of myself as a musician, first and foremost. And I think what's in common to all my music therapy work, and perhaps what's most important for me, is a basic attitude of care for music and working with clients' own care for music. I think this is the basis of the music-centered approach to music therapy, which believes that how we help our clients comes from how we care for music. For our clients' music, but also for our own music. Paul Nordoff used to talk about musician therapists rather than music therapists at the beginning. And he was, after all, a professional composer and pianist for the first 50 years of his own life. So I think we need to keep thinking about our skills as musicians, even as we're music therapists. We need to keep thinking about how we listen and how we play, and to keep cultivating skills for caring about music. And I think listening is the most important skill for this. Listening as a musician first, and then listening through the music in a particular way as a music therapist. But still, listening comes first. I've got a few slogans and maxims that I tend to put into presentations, so I thought I'd share a few of those with you to begin with. The first is, quite simply, think musically first. I will say you can think of anything else second, but think musically first. And secondly, listening is as important and arguably more important than playing. Working in a music-centered way means caring for every note, as we sometimes say. And we do this by a process I'm going to call deep listening in this tutorial, which means listening to exactly what, but also to how the client plays, and to exactly what and how you as the therapist play in response to your client's music. It's really easy to miss quite a lot of the detail and the quality of what's happening in our sessions, unless we slow down a bit and we make ourselves listen carefully again. Of course, I'm not the first person to use this term, deep listening. It's been used in a variety of ways before, as the title of the ethnomusicologist Judith Becker's book, and also music therapist Mercedes Pavlicevic used it in a paper that she wrote with the ethnomusicologist Angela Impey. So this deep listening also involves something I'm going to call broad listening. And this type of listening looks and listens round and about the scene in which you're working as a music therapist. Broad listening sensitizes us to everything that's going on around us, both musically and socially, within music therapy situations. And this is especially true when we're working in more everyday settings, such as perhaps the living room of a care home, or a school classroom, or a hospital ward. In these contexts, we need to be as aware and as sensitive as we can, both to the social and the musical ecology around us. And again, the emphasis is on not missing anything that people are doing musically or in the things that are happening around the musical. This is a particular emphasis in community music therapy, but I think it can be important to any type of music therapy. These kinds of careful attention to music need disciplined training and ongoing cultivation. And what I happen to show and share with you in this tutorial is some ways that we can go about caring for music, and by listening in particular attention to the detail and the context. It's a form of micro-listening and micro-analysis at some points, and I'm going to outline some of the principles of deep and broad listening, and then work through some examples to show how these principles are enacted in particular forms of listening skills. I think this focus on musical detail is relevant to any area of music therapy that you work in. But perhaps especially when we all sometimes doubt the effect that our music therapy is having with certain clients. But this is because sometimes we're missing their responses that are very small and subtle. I'm not trying to make everyone into a Nordoff Robbins music therapist here, but rather to share, I think, what is some of its main strengths, which is its sensitivity to musical detail and process, and to learning to listen down and around to the music in music therapy, and to think about how this matters for our music therapy work. In my experience, developing these listening skills helps you to remain interested in your work as a music therapist, and also to remain interested in music itself. I think it can increase the scope of your reflective practice, and it can help you to fine-tune your work. So by the end of the tutorial, I want you to be able to think again for a while about what listening is as a musician when you're working also as a music therapist. I want you to be more aware of how you're listening musically within your music therapy work. And I want you to be able to use some of the techniques that I'll show for actually practicing deep and broad listening within your reflective practice as a music therapist. And lastly, I want you to become passionate listeners again. In music therapy, of course, but also in your everyday life.